Good morning. And as you can see, it's a foggy, drizzly morning here in Frederick, Maryland. But we're going to walk around anyway. What you're looking at is Carroll Creek. And as you can see, it's pretty high on its banks right now. It's been pretty rainy for a few days here. We're going to take a walk and follow Carroll Creek into downtown Frederick, Maryland. Talk about its history, which includes flooding and some amazing engineering solutions to keep the creek from flooding in the future. There's a really nice trail and parks along the way, and some traffic to be careful about. We're going to walk the creek north into Frederick, and then we're going to crisscross the creek on the creek. Let me try that again. We're going to crisscross the creek over its many bridges. So let's get started. You can see the sign here, Carroll Creek Park. So the park extends most of the length of the creek in Frederick, but also there are other parks along the way. But I do just want to point out right here, kind of at the beginning of the park, the lavender is amazing, and I could smell it from across the street. So along the way we'll see lots of plants and birds native to this area of Maryland, but this lavender is luscious lavender going on here. There's a fountain here. It's not on right now, but along the way the creek has been engineered and managed to try to avoid the flooding and kind of devastating flooding too. But it's been managed with these, broader spaces, some fountains, some little dams and weirs. Hi, another space nut. Oh my gosh, look at it. Good morning, Yane or Yane. I wish you all could smell this. I wish we had smell-o-vision here. Like I said, I could smell it from across the street. And there's a little bumblebee doing its thing. I have lavender too. I have lavender and I have catmint that the bees and the butterflies absolutely love. And they're going at it today. It's a really dreary day today, but we're gonna find some beautiful plants and trees and birds and butterflies and take a look at the artwork along the creek as well. So let's get started. British waterways have been ruined. Oh, so it's amazing to see the waterways on your walking tour. Hi, Daniel. Good morning. It depends on where you are in the United States. This is a great example of one that's been very well engineered. Now you can also probably hear a lot of fans. So Frederick, Maryland, very historic. I almost said town, but it really is a city. Very historic city in Maryland. It is slightly north, but mostly west of Baltimore. It's kind of at the convergence of the National Road, which is Route 40, and Route 15, which heads up into Pennsylvania and Gettysburg. Yes, Daniel, this is Maryland. This is heading toward Western Maryland. But Frederick, we'll talk about all the history as we walk along, but also a place for industry. And so there's a factory here. I'm not sure what this is, but they have really big, huge fans going. I think it's a food warehouse of some sort. And then on this side, I'm not sure what these are. What are these? They're not I don't know my plants other than the ones that I grow. These are not catmint. They kind of look like catmint. Oh, here's catmint. So this is Catmint. Hi, howdy, howdy. Oh, Daniel, if you're in Glen Burnie, hon, I live in Anne Arundel, just south of Baltimore, so we're probably neighbors, Daniel. We're definitely neighbors. You can hear my Baltimore accent as I walk around, but I'm just south of the city, just like you are. Morning, Abe. Morning, Abe. All right, so this is kind of the end of the or the beginning, I should say, the beginning of the re-engineered Carroll Creek. So we're going to take our walk up the creek and see the benches, the street lights, the paving, the artwork, the fountains, the plants and the trees and all the cool stuff while we talk about Frederick, Maryland. Hope you're doing well, Abe. Yeah, I got started a little earlier. It's such a dreary day. So, no bright, beautiful, sunshiny shots today. It's going to be foggy, but still a nice day for a walk. So Frederick, Maryland, as I mentioned, it's slightly north, but mostly west of Baltimore. It's a really pivotal place in the history of the United States Civil War. It's the town that the Southern Confederate Army thought they would be welcomed with open arms when General Lee came through Frederick, Maryland, and they were rebuffed. They miscalculated. Had they come into Maryland through Baltimore or some of the southern counties, they would have been probably received a better welcome. But out here in Western Maryland, the sympathies were certainly on the Union side. And so there's a lot of history here. This city was an important town in the development of the railroad. Certainly an important town in kind of combining industry and agriculture. Lots of farms around here, but also lots of factories. Interesting artwork here on this beautiful creek. And many homes dating back to the early 1800s, even to the late 1700s, are preserved here. It's known as the town of the clustered spires because of the many tall church spires. On a sunny day, you would see them from here. I'm pointing at some now. You can't see them today. It's too foggy. Way too foggy. Alright, so here's our next little work of art here in the middle of the creek. That's pretty cool. That looks like it's, what do we call that? A kinetic sculpture? So if the wind were blowing, I think the wings would be flapping. Oh, there's a little breeze. Not too much of a breeze. This is it's a really nice walk, or hike, or stroll with the kids. And then as we get further up into the town of Frederick, we got the shops, the restaurants. Brew pubs are a big thing here. Several brew pubs. And a lot of signage and information about the cities that are twinned with Frederick, Maryland. I think it's 2 cities in Germany. So the brewing history here in Frederick is a big deal, and their connection with their German cousins and their German roots is a big deal. And actually over here you can see one of those breweries, Attaboy Beer. I don't know if you can see through this fence. Attaboy Beer is over there. Oops. Attaboy Beer's good. And lots of really helpful signs telling us all about the art and the flora and the fauna here. Hello, El Comandante. We are in Frederick, Maryland. The city of Frederick, Maryland. And we're walking Carroll Creek specifically. In addition to the church spires, Frederick is also really close to a number of covered bridges, and there's a covered bridge that goes over Carroll Creek quite a bit north of here. Depending on my pace today and the weather, we might actually get up to one of those covered bridges. This is pretty cool. I like that one. Really nice. I hope everyone has plans to get outside and do something fun today, regardless of your weather. It's so dreary here. It's not cold. The temperature's actually quite pleasant for a summer walk, but I like some sunshine. I like to take nice photos in the sunshine. I brought my real camera with me today. Last week, wherever we were, can't remember, and it was so bright and beautiful and sunny, and I did not have my real camera. So normally I will stream in one direction and then take photos with my 35 millimeter on the way back, and I was disappointed I didn't do that. So this sculpture obviously is a nod to our agricultural roots here. Pretty cool in Frederick, Maryland. Davyverse, hi. Remind you of the canals around here. Oh, remind us again. Canals around where, Davyverse? Where exactly are you? Hope you're having a great morning. Abe looks outside, and that ticks the box for him for his outdoor exploration. Totally get it, Abe. You do you. You can see there across the way a stone structure, probably one of those old 1800s buildings over there. We'll make our way up north, and then we'll come back down south on the creek. And there's another sculpture. I'm liking these sculptures. You know, it's funny, sometimes when you're out and about and you have a specific itinerary and a checklist, those are good, but sometimes you miss all the other cool, fun stuff. So today was just a wander. Just a wander. Now, as we get up here and we start to see the little footbridges across the creek, each one's different. And the artwork is different. The ironwork or stonework is different on each bridge. So we'll take a little look here. And the creek was re-engineered and kind of managed in the late 1970s after a really devastating flood. I think in 1976. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. And then has just continued to develop with the installation of the artwork, bridges, all kinds of cool stuff. So we'll take a look up here. Whoa, carefully. We're gonna crisscross the bridge today. And here's a look from this bridge, and we'll get up there to where those fountains are. And here you can see this building also includes a ghost sign, Union Knitting Mills. So much to explore here. I didn't bring all my notes. Today's just wandering around. But if you're in the area or close by, so Daniel, I think it was Daniel who's in Glen Burnie, it's like an hour, not even, probably 45 minutes from Glen Burnie. And we have our little ballet dancer here. Quite beautiful. Does the U.S. have a riverboat called, oh, Newcastle. I know, Davey, like what we say is old here is not even close to old by your estimations. That's why I like to travel to your parts so frequently. This is the Steinhardt Brewing Company, and I think it's named after one of those cities that Frederick is twinned with. I mentioned the strong bond between a couple of German cities that are sister cities to Frederick. I think Steinhardt is one of them. But Davy, no, not a riverboat culture, because a couple of reasons. For the most part, rivers didn't connect like our cities. I mean, I'm sure there are some places that did, but the U.S. being so big and huge, I mean, we did build a canal system in New York, and then the C&O Canal in Washington and Maryland, but not really. There is a kind of a posh, boating culture on the Chesapeake Bay. There's a combination. There's, the fishing industry on the Chesapeake Bay, but then, like in Baltimore and all the small towns on the Chesapeake Bay, there's definitely a yachting culture there. Come to Newcastle for its 1000th birthday. That would be awesome. I think it wasn't too long ago that, not Gdansk, one of the cities in Poland had 1,000-year, not Warsaw. The other major city, and I'm so sorry, the third major city, and it's not Warsaw, it's not Gdansk, had its 1,000-year, and I almost went for that. But this is really cool. And this here is Idiom Brewing Company. So I mentioned the brew pub culture here on this beautiful little body of water. Think about like a nice Friday night, everybody hanging out on this little creek. And they're very particular about calling it a creek. It is a creek. So the mill would have been here, obviously making use of the water to power the mill. Krakow. I think it's Krakow. I think you're right. Or Krakow. I think you're right. Don't know why that didn't come to me. And we've got fountains up here. How beautiful. And across the way, see if we can get a little closer and get a photo of this statue to Claire McCardle, fashion designer extraordinaire from Maryland. And there is a wonderful collection of her designs at the Maryland Historical Society in Baltimore. And by the way, the Maryland Historical Society has one of the largest, if not the largest and most significant fashion history collection in the country. So if you're into the history of fashion, that's your place to go. But Claire, our friend Claire here, she designed dresses in I guess it was like the 1930s and 40s. And her claim to fame, in addition to her amazing designs, is that she designed dresses for Wallis Simpson, Duchess of Windsor, the Baltimore girl who ended up marrying, at the time, the former King Edward VIII, who abdicated the throne to marry a twice divorced woman in Wallis, who was from Baltimore, local girl. But Claire, really fashion forward, very practical designs. Absolutely, probably invented the pocket dress. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, because I have pockets in my suits today because of you, Claire. Nice little tribute to her there. Nice place to hang out and just chill, watch the fountains, enjoy the park. Oh, wow, Davy Verse. You got a canal boat. Davy Verse, we need to see pictures. Have you put pictures on the Discord? You gotta put pictures on the Pork Chop Discord so we can check that out. I'd love to see that. Now from here you can get just a little glimpse, and we'll come down this street, but you can get just a little glimpse of those 19th century homes. I know that doesn't seem that long ago. Here on Patrick Street. Kind of the two main streets in Frederick are Patrick Street, which runs north-south, I think, and Market Street runs east-west, although my problem with Frederick is the streets aren't exactly a grid pattern, and I like my grid patterns, so I get a little confused. And you can see one of the church spires here peeking through. Oh, another space nut. No, another YouTuber called Mr. Pork Chop has a Discord that Davey Verse and I are both in. So check out Mr. Pork Chop. I'm contemplating a Discord focused on history and historic research. So stay tuned for that. Because I've gotten to the point where I have finalized some research templates and formats and logs. I've been working for years to make logs that work for me. So I want to post and share those so that if anyone else is doing research and, cataloging photos, organizing your research. I'm always in search of a good checklist and a template, and I think I have some good ones, so I want to share those. So I might activate my Discord for that. All right, we're going to continue to walk north because we actually have a very long way to go today. So it's time to get a move on. Now this bridge here, I'm not going to walk down here on this grass. It's wet and steep, and I don't want to end up in the water. But we'll take a look at this bridge from the other side. Maybe the artwork is repeated on the other side. All right, crossing the street. Carefully. Morning. I'm always surprised how much traffic there is so early in the morning. It's 7:15. I started this stream before 7 this morning. So the motif on this bridge, just a little oak leaf with acorns on it. Kind of cool. And here we've got Maryland's state flower, the black-eyed Susan, also the name of a drink, the black-eyed Susan. Beautiful. Technically a weed, a wildflower, but a beautiful wildflower. If you're someplace else in the world, it's called Rudbeckia. But this is the Maryland black-eyed Susan. Could make for a viral video. Uh-oh. What could make for a viral? Oh, me falling in? Yeah. You guys will see it one day. I'm clumsy. I will fall. I did once already. Broke 2 ribs. But it was right before a stream. And I streamed anyway and didn't tell you guys I had broken 2 ribs. Well, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it until I went to get back in my car and I reached, just the act of reaching for the door handle let me know that I had seriously injured myself. So each part of this creek, kind of has a different theme, which is also great for exploring. You're not seeing the same old thing for, 3, 4, 5 miles. So back there, we started with the lavender, and then we went through the artwork, and now we've got the black-eyed Susans. And I always forget what these beautiful things are called. But this is what I have in my garden. And I have more of a yellowy version of these puppies here, which are quite beautiful. Oh, another space nut. Your brother has a boat too. Cool. Well, you guys should, you should all get together and do a canal boat adventure. We would love that. So Davy Verse and another space nut get together. I think you should. Yeah, my brother has a boat too on the Chesapeake. There was one year he and my dad, like every day, came home with bushels and bushels of Chesapeake blue crabs, which are quite a delicacy. But then after a while, it was like, okay, now what do we do with them? Like, we've made crab cakes and crab dip and crab salad and my mom made a crab omelet. Just ran out of things to do with them. That was a good year. Sadly, haven't had that good of a year in a long time. These boxes are just lovely. Just so quiet and picturesque. Now these little things, I don't know what these are either. Oh, I have to start to learn my flowers. I have these in my yard as well. Oops. These are not black-eyed Susans. These are much smaller, but quite bright and pretty. I think I should Davy Verse. You know, I watched a documentary with Sir David Suchet, Hercule Poirot, and he lived on a narrowboat. And he did a little documentary on his life on his narrowboat. And I thought, that was pretty cool. What a serene life. Befitting of the man, of course. Quite beautiful. We'll take a look back on this part of the creek. Yeah, I've done like Little Venice, around Little Venice. I've not gotten on one of them. One of them was like a little coffee shop, and I just got my drink or tea. I just got my drink and sat outside of it, but I didn't actually go on it, which I should. So this little, the wrought iron work on this bridge is so intricate and delicate. Quite pretty. Flowery. This is just a small pedestrian bridge here. Really beautiful. Hopefully we'll see some more like local signage, but I do believe part of the like Frederick, Maryland flag or crest is a Tudor rose. So we need to do some research on that and see why. And here, this wrought iron tree sculpture here, right at the end of the bridge. Quite beautiful. Yeah, this is kind of a Tudor rose, kind of a part of a Tudor rose, I suppose, or an interpretation of one might say. Art is everywhere. And the tree sculpture on the other side of the bridge, and the willows with the dragonfly on this side of the bridge. Quite pretty. And more sculpture here. With a tree with oak, maple, all kinds of different leaves on that sort of tree over there. Oh, here we go. Here's some information. The iron bridge railing, crafted by Iron Masters Incorporated. Nikolai Pakhomov. Beautiful. I also know there are quite a few, several historic craftsmen here in this area. Some of the preservation projects that I work on, restoring old homes and structures to their original, use craftsmen in and around Frederick for things like the window panes and the glass and the window frames and all kinds of those. This is the Delaplane Arts Center. And another lovely sculpture today. You know, in a way, while disappointed that it's not a sunny day, sometimes it's interesting to see things in a different light. And more flowers across the creek. So we've crisscrossed the creek again. I watched a video yesterday on some historic homes in Georgetown, and right away I noticed, you know, the video I made last week in Georgetown, bright sunny day, and right away I noticed that, oh, it's kind of dark and gray. But the more I watched the video, it kind of showed the same homes in a different light, and that was interesting. Some kind of arts festival happening here on the creek. There's also a farmer's market, but doesn't begin until 9 o'clock. Hello, Sadat Erdogan. Hi, Sadat. This is in, I think you've been in our chat before, so welcome back. Remember the name. This is Frederick, Maryland in the United States. So this is the Trompe-l'oeil Bridge. It's painted to look like old brick, but it is new concrete. And it's quite well done. Definitely quite well done. In each of the bricks, in some of the bricks, you can see little motifs. There's an English rose. There's a Celtic knot. There's a plow. There's a parking meter. Interesting. There's a telephone. Now, why am I thinking like parking meters used to be made here? True story, the reason I know all about parking meters is because my dad worked for the Baltimore City Department of Transit and Traffic in the parking meters division. So I know all about how parking meters work. And I think they were made here. I think the Duncan factory was here. So now we've gone on a parking meter tangent. But back across the way, more, I can smell it. More of that lavender. Wow. Just amazing. Well, thank you, Sadat. It is beautiful. It's a terribly, and you'll tell me if the lens looks foggy. I don't want to look at the lens. That would be hilarious. Possible to see my face? No. No, but my little cartoon avatar looks just like me. Seriously. I look like a librarian. Let me know if the lens appears to be fogging up. Please let me know. I think it's okay. But if it looks really awful, tell me. This is Frederick, Maryland. It's a city just west and slightly north of Baltimore. Lots of history. And across the way is the McClintock Distillery. So lots of brewing here. We're on Carroll Creek, which is the historic creek that runs through Frederick, which has been developed over the years into an absolutely beautiful, beautiful park. Great place for walking, hiking, chilling, grabbing some beer, or whatever your drink of choice is at the local distilleries. Lots of restaurants around here. Really fun place to visit. I wish I knew what these, okay, I know what, the lily jumpers are here, but these plants are quite interesting as well. I really wonder why, because it's not about me, it's about the history. Also because I have a full-time job in a controlled and regulated industry. And so I don't want people to find me. But I appreciate you wanting to know what I look like. Imagine a middle-aged librarian, historian technically, And that's what you'll get. Glasses. Now, carrying on the theme of every bridge looks different, we have a suspension bridge here. So this pedestrian bridge is a suspension bridge over Carroll Creek. So let's take a walk across the suspension bridge. Oh, and there's a historic plaque. I can't walk past a historic plaque. I have to take a second here. So this, yes. So the Great Flood that I mentioned was in 1976. And this park was dedicated in 2006 in recognition of that flood. The town of Frederick was founded in 1745. Wow. And the bridge is named for William O. Lee, who worked hard for Frederick. But look how lovely that is. Peaceful, serene, but on a Friday night, a lot of fun. So let's make our way over the suspension bridge. And the folks who live in these apartments have a really beautiful view. Is there fish? I don't think so. But we'll see. I wouldn't think so, but you never know. In Maryland, fish always find a way in every little river and every little creek. Kudos to that owner and the beautiful window boxes up there. Really nice. Oh, Space Nut, you're really nice. Thank you. Well, thank you. That's awfully kind of you. I did go live one time. The night that I made my 500 subs was a complete surprise. I think I got 21 subs in one night during a stream. And so I just decided to pop on camera. And yeah, in my business suit. I was actually walking home from work. Business suit.
I'm good. How are you?
Surprising, I'm sure, to most. This is a nice view. This is a hi, good morning.
Good morning.
This is a really nice view here. And we're going to take a closer look at the bridge up there because that has like these more colorful painted iron over there. That's just a nice, this is a really great view here. And these apartments or condos over here, I don't remember them from prior visits, so they must be relatively new. Well, thank you, Sadat. Was that the bar video? Yes, yes. And I couldn't stop streaming because like more and more people were joining the stream, and I really wanted to go home. And I don't know if I told you all, I had no idea my niece was in chat. Okay, she found me about a year ago. She found my channel. You know, I don't tell my family I do these crazy things. They know I do these crazy things. But my niece actually, the next day she called me and told me that she was in the chat during the bar video and congratulated me on my 500 subs. So, dear niece, you know who you are. If you're here now, thank you for joining. I don't know. I try to inspire a little bit of spirit of adventure in my kids and my nieces and nephew. I'm not sure it's catching on. It will. It will. The cute little fountains here. I found an entire town stuck inside a brutalist structure in Scotland. When you have time, search for Cumbernauld. Oh, I will. I definitely will. That sounds quite interesting. I will check that out. Cumbernauld, for sure. So a little later in the day, this place will be jumping. The wine kitchen over here. It's only 7:30 in the morning. A little too early for the wine kitchen. And these flowers here are gorgeous. All right, I'm on the tippy edge here, so we're going to be really careful. Now, Abe and Davy verse, play nicely, please. That is lovely. This area here, I would say, would probably be the busiest place on an evening. We passed the wine kitchen, and here is Plaza Mexico, Italian. Strike that. Let me try again. Take two. Plaza Mexico, Mexican food. It was the colors of the flag. It you know, red, green, white. You know, Mexican, Italian. And Sweeties, ice cream shop, and Truth and Beauty bar and kitchen for brunch, lunch, dinner, drinks, and daily specials. What I appreciate here is that the new construction certainly follows the same motif as the historic buildings. So, you know, brick, lots of brick, metal roofs, tin roofs. And here, this clock, which is not working right now, but quite pretty, and pretty in the sunlight for sure. Kind of a zodiacal theme there. And here's a good place where you can see several of the bridges in succession. More restaurants. And we'll do some crisscrossing here. This one's steep. Okay. Steep step. And looking north. And we'll look back south. Oh my gosh. This is peaceful. This is Frederick, Maryland. This is Carroll Creek, which has been engineered from a flooding disaster to a beautiful park. And we just passed all the fountains and things. The really interesting parts, and the gardens that are down there. But all these little bridges, each bridge is different. little pedestrian routes crisscrossing this little peaceful creek, which nearly destroyed the entire city of Frederick in the past, because it does. They do that. Hope you're having a good day. Dan, are you streaming? So chat, please follow Mr. Pork Chop 14. He's a real YouTuber, and he's a lot of fun. Lots of fun. All right, historic old firehouse there. So this town established in granted in 1745, established in 1748, with a mix of brick and wooden structures. So you see La Paz on the corner, which is going to become Salt and Vine. Next to that is Hooch and Banter. Hooch and Banter is an awesome pub. Great place to be. Hooch and Banter. Get your moonshine there. So this creek terminates, so from the direction we started, which is south, the creek would terminate into the Monocacy River, another really historical river, played an important part in the Civil War, crossed many times back and forth by both the Union and the Confederate armies. But we're heading north, and this creek continues to go forward all the way to the Catoctin Mountains. So that's where this creek originates, in the Catoctin Mountains. What's local time here? It is 7:38 a.m. in the morning. And there's some more of these beautiful Maryland black-eyed Susans, our state flower. So we're not going to go all the way to the Catoctin Mountains. My battery will definitely die before that happens. But we'll go as far as we can up through the built-up part of the creek park. And then we're going to crisscross over into the shopping district and come down the historic shopping street. It is quiet. There's just runners and dog walkers, and a few people like me. There's actually a gentleman across the way taking, with his 35 mil, taking some nice photos of the flowers. Have I been to Orlando? Yes. Am I going for a run? So I'm going to walk as far north as possible, and then come back down the street, and then I am going to put my camera away and go for a run. Yes, because it's not hot today. It's like in the 70s. And this is relatively flat. It's inclining as I go north, but this is relatively flat compared to other places. So yeah, I'm going to be running it. I brought the other shoes. All right, we'll make our way up to this little weir and then work our way back down. Yeah, this week was just outrageous. We had 102 one day with absolutely stifling humidity, and every night we've had quite bad storms. 2 nights ago we lost power, but that's typical for this time of year. But it is problematic when you're on a live stream and you have to say, hey dude, if I disappear, it's because I lost my connection. Oh wow, now let's look at this garden. I think this is a private garden, but it's quite nice. Oh, but there's a sign. On April 23rd, 1755, at a tavern located near this spot, General Edward Braddock, Colonel George Washington, and Benjamin Franklin met to plan the British assault at Fort Duquesne during the French and Indian War. Because we were British back then. So that was that. This is lovely. So there's some history. And yet George Washington is everywhere. On the East Coast, you can't go anywhere without finding a George Washington was here plaque. And it's probably true. He was very well traveled. He truly was. So Davy verse, you got caught in a thunderstorm. That's kind of rare for you, right? To have real like thunderstorms. We're so used to it. We had another tree came down, and my wonderful neighbor has already started hacking it up even before we could take care of it. He's so nice. But all this beauty here in this, as you can tell, not so natural creek, right? It's surrounded by concrete, and it's definitely been engineered. It's to prevent flooding in the future. And I don't pretend to understand all the engineering, but there are culverts under the creek that can be opened up to alleviate flooding or prevent flooding, to alleviate the water flow when it's really raining. So I assume that during the last week or so, that probably happened quite a bit. I do too. I do love a good thunderstorm. Except losing power. And we lose power kind of for silly reason, but because our power lines are above ground. And they're always around trees. Trees come down, power lines come down. So I understand not having the budget to bury millions of miles of cable. I get that. But why grow trees around them? That's what I do not understand. All right, I think the next bridge we're going to cross over, and then we're going to head down the shopping street. Oh, that sounds lovely. Caravanning as a kid, thunderstorms battering the tin roof. How nice. I remember, just living in the city, and after a good hard rain, everything smells clean. It's that after rain smell, which actually, there is a word for that. It's called petrichor. You all probably know this. I just learned it recently, that the smell after a rainstorm is called petrichor. So now we know. It could be. I actually thought it's probably the acid rain. eating away everything from all the pollution. That's probably what it is. Hey, Queen Batty. I don't know. See, that's why I have to look these things up. But I know there's a smell. Maybe it is only in a city when you have a slightly smelly city and then the rain kind of washes it away. Not so sure. Now, we could theoretically continue walking this creek all the way to the Catoctin Mountains a few miles from here, but we're not going to do that today. What we are going to do is take a look at some of these amazing homes. And I didn't plan this, but I happened to be at one of the most famous homes in Frederick. I'm in the street now. Be careful. This is the Barbara Fritchie house, surrounded by a little bit of myth and a lot of history. So maybe be careful and cross back over here. And we'll talk about our friend Barbara Fritchie. So legend has it that when the Confederate soldiers came through Frederick on their way to what they believed was conquering Maryland and then into Pennsylvania, legend has it that they obviously didn't get the reception that they thought they would get. They thought they would be welcomed with open arms as liberating Frederick from the Union, from the tyranny of the Union. And Barbara Fritchie, being a good American, had her flag flying as it is today. And this was in, I believe, 1863. But we're going to check that when we look at the historic plaque. And one of the soldiers attempted to yank down the flag. One of the Confederate soldiers attempted to yank down the flag, and she refused. And she said she wasn't gonna. And they said, well, we're gonna shoot you. And she said something to the effect of, shoot if you must this old gray head, but harm not your nation's flag. Now that's where the myth comes in. You know, these stories get blown up and written in the newspapers and exaggerated. And so here we have, as we do, a lovely historic plaque that tells what we think is the real story. The aged Fritchie did, however, wave a flag from her porch when the Federal forces marched by. She shook a United States flag at the Confederates. They ignored her. Feisty local unionists, mostly women, taunted the troops by waving the stars and stripes as they passed by. So she was a taunter. And then a poem was written, The Ballad of Barbara Fritchie. So 1862, we're saying here. So this would have been after Antietam. Well, they're kind of conflating everything on one map. But we are not too far from the location of the Battle of South Mountain, which was the battle preceding the Battle of Antietam. So Barbara Fritchie House and a number of, as you can tell, super old structures here on this street. The typical mid-1800s structure looked like this. Brick, shingled roof, or a metal roof. 2 stories in general. If you had that 3rd story, you were wealthy. Probably a business owner. And here, a couple of other historic homes on this street. Yeah, war propaganda. It's great. Yeah, Axon. So it goes to the mountains. It actually originates in the mountains. So the water comes down from the Catoctin Mountains. So that name might be familiar if you've looked into where Camp David is, where the President of the United States has his presidential retreat, is in the Catoctin Mountains. There's also a really nice state park there and beautiful waterfalls in that park. So as we head toward the west of Maryland, we're in the mountains. Maryland's great because we have the beach and the Atlantic Ocean all the way through central Maryland, the agricultural areas, and then out here getting closer to western Maryland, and then the mountains, the Allegheny Mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains, all good stuff. Oh, you've hiked there. It is a great place to hike. Oh, here's a nice restoration. Another kind of feature of the mid to late 1800s with these homes is the railings. So we talk about traditional federal style homes, which are late 1700s, into the very, very early 1800s. Brick, characterized by brick, small ornamentation around the door, and those lovely shutters. When we get into the 1800s, we get more wrought iron work around the windowsills, around the grates, around the doors, especially in those little alleyways, and then these porches come in the 1800s. Probably more detailed in the architecture in the South than in the North, and you actually won't see these porches if you go up to New England area. You don't see that. But I want to zone in on this beautiful restoration here because this is an illustration of an old architectural style that is now being replicated in modern homes, and that is the black window frames. So if you look at this house to the right, you got the white window frames. You see that on modern homes. Almost all modern homes have white window frames, right? No matter what the style. It's just boring builders selecting white window frames. But recently, I'm seeing a lot of black window frames in modern construction, and I think it looks sleek. My home, when we got new downspouts, we chose to go with black for the downspouts. If I were to someday get all new windows, I might go with black window frames. But that's a little super geeky architectural moment there on that restoration. But that's a really great example. And here, law offices, a lot of the buildings that have been restored are law offices and professional buildings here, for sure. Now we're heading up to the main street. It's really sleek. It lends a lot of interest, but it doesn't look out of place because it is historic. And we've also seen some structures recently with the kind of dark Kelly green shutters and window frames, which look really cool too. I know, I wish I could figure out something to do with my home, which is modern construction, to make it look more historic. Of course, I dream of buying one of these historic homes, preferably in the Kalorama area of Washington, D.C. But one can dream. And there's no sun. I had so hoped for just a little glimpse of some sunlight today. And there's nothing. So we're on Patrick Street. So two kind of main streets are Patrick Street and Market Street. I think we're coming up on Market Street and moving into the busier section of the area. Frederick's Hotel Block, a good night's rest. This part of Frederick known for its hospitality. The city hotel was demolished for a modern fireproof hotel in 1923. And you can kind of see some of these historic markers. So this is a Maryland historic marker. The one we saw back there was Civil War trails. There are also markers sponsored by the American Battlefield Trust. This one is a Maryland marker. And at the bottom, you can see the relief of where we are in terms of the mountains. So let's start over here. Here's Baltimore. And if you go west, you go to Ellicott City. We visited Ellicott City 3 or 4 weeks ago, not too long ago. And if we keep going west on the National Road, which is Route 40, we pass by Poplar Springs, Mount Airy, New Market, Frederick. So you can see Frederick is in a valley. And then Braddock Heights, and then Middletown. And just kind of south and west of Middletown is South Mountain. So that little bump between Middletown and Boonesboro is the South Mountain Range. And then Hagerstown and Clear Spring. And then you can see, as we go west, this reminds us of like the Tour de France maps that we see every day before they start riding. And then we keep going farther and farther out till we get to the real mountains out in Frostburg, Maryland. Now, what we call mountains are probably not mountains to most of you. They're nowhere near what we would see in the Rocky Mountains and would be considered laughable hills to those of you who've been to the Alps. They're technically mountains here, but they're not. They're not anything challenging. So we're on Patrick Street. And as we head further down, this is where we'll hit the shops, the restaurants. It is so quiet here. Just really big hills. It is space. I mean, that's what this is. It's just, they're big hills. We're proud of them. They're important to our history. Up, definitely a bank. Now, I'm not going to get out the small town Main Street bingo card because this is not a small town. Frederick is not a small town. It's a town. It's a city. But on our small town bingo card, when we look at that stereotypical bank, this is it. This is your stereotypical bank building here for sure. And I'm going to move across the street because of the music. And I don't want a copyright claim today. And I would say this is probably the crossroads of the downtown. This is Patrick Street and Market Street. And I mentioned Hooch and Banter. The pub is down there. This building that is now the Colonial Jewelers. And this building here, the Citizens National Bank. This would have been the historic epicenter of business in Frederick, Maryland. And it still is. It definitely still is. And it's now 8 o'clock. Good morning, Daryl. Daryl! It's 8 o'clock. Now, since we're not in Washington, D.C., we don't have the national anthem at 8 o'clock, which we do in Washington, D.C. You can hear the national anthem blaring from any of the military facilities or the embassies, which I'm usually around at 8 o'clock. But not today. I can't decide who's more dangerous. People driving electric cars that I can't hear coming up behind me, or runners coming right to me but who don't see me. Another historic sign, this is one of the Civil War Trails signs. And Frederick was along the way to the Gettysburg campaign, Gettysburg being 1863, Battle of Antietam being 1862. And a lot of history around the Monocacy River and some battle orders that General Lee left behind, wrapped in cigars to be delivered to someone that weren't actually delivered, found by Union soldiers. And that happened in this area as well. So being a center of business and trade, kind of connecting the industrial parts of Maryland with the agricultural parts of Maryland in the 1800s, this was a place for commerce. And the railroad. I keep forgetting to mention the railroad. So this architecture, this is typical of, like that 1800s, even going out toward the Midwest. This architecture is pretty typical. The rounded window frames, brick with some decorative designs in between the stories, and that highly decorated rooftop. Wooden with a lot of different features there. Very, very typical of cities and towns during that time. Now, I always recommend supporting local businesses, one-off, but I do like the Spice and Tea Exchange. I know they're a chain, but you can only generally find those in smaller towns. Good stuff. There's an Irish shop here. Now, I do want to share, and I'll stop up here and chat just for a second about the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. This is an absolute treat, and it's not just about Civil War medicine. So why are we so interested in Civil War medicine? Well, from films like Gone with the Wind and other films that did do their job in sharing the scale. That scene in Gone with the Wind when the camera pans up and you see the scale of the wounded, and then other films that show the gruesomeness of the injuries. What they did not get correct. They kind of overdid it with portraying medicine as classic car, portraying medicine at the time as absolutely medieval. It was not what we have today, but it was not as gruesome sometimes as depicted. Particularly the assumption that every wound resulted in amputation was just not true. The depiction that every surgery took place without any form of anesthetic or anesthesia or painkiller is just not true. So this museum, the National Museum of Civil War Medicine, does a fantastic job of telling the real story of the medical advances that came about due to the Civil War. And of course, we've heard the story of Clara Barton, and as well as the sisters from under Mother Seton, that attempted to provide care and comfort and also wash their hands and promote cleanliness in caring for the wounded. So this museum is just an absolute treat. There's a fantastic collection here. I highly, highly recommend a visit. They also have a YouTube channel, and they do a number of really great, engaging, and informational live streams. They have fantastic guest speakers. They partner with other historical societies in the area. and just put on some really great programs. So one more look at the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. Yeah, Space Nut, absolutely. Our advances in technology generally come from war. Unfortunately, you know, in the oldie days, those advances kind of or let me say this, the lack of advances or the perceived lack of common sense is definitely overdone and over-exaggerated. So we'll continue to walk down our little main street here. Many local businesses here. Definitely a hub for antiquing, if that's your thing. I haven't seen a bookshop yet. There is a good bookshop, but it's not here in the main area. It's kind of off the beaten path. But I haven't seen a bookshop on the main street. That's a good one, right there. Now that kind of super ornamentation above the windows and door, haven't seen that style before. And here, as typical in our cities on the East Coast, just a mix of architectural styles. As owners found funding and a builder for their homes, they built their individual homes one next to another, instead of what sprouted up in the late 1800s, when I think row houses started to be a little cookie cutter-ish. And then certainly in the mid 1900s, when construction in cities was booming and they became very samey. Check that one out. That is the, if I'm reading it correctly, Perry Beale McCleary House, 1876, if my eyes are working correctly. And this one here, again, the more floors, the more money. This is quite wide and quite tall. So someone of wealth would have constructed this one here. I have now been streaming, oh my gosh, for way over an hour and 18 minutes to be exact. So I'm gonna end the stream here. Oh, your house was built in 1910. Hi, PJ Silence, thank you for joining. I'm so glad you're here. It's been a dreary, foggy, rainy morning, but I hope everyone enjoyed this little walk up Carroll Creek, around Carroll Creek Park, across whatever street that was up there, back down Patrick Street. We're in Frederick, Maryland, the city of Frederick, Maryland. So if you're in this area, definitely check it out. If you like history, you can't miss Frederick, Maryland. I hope everyone has an absolutely fantastic weekend. Hey, Suzanne! Hey, Suzanne. It's great to see you. I hope everyone has an absolutely fantastic weekend. We do have Film Club today. Film Club is my pick for fantasy film, The Highlander. So check us out on Stasis Geeks channel at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 8 p.m. British summertime, UK time. So check us out there. But everyone have a fantastic weekend and take care.